The political climate here in the United States is pretty much two parties, and then everybody has to belong to one or the other, or else they're wasting their vote and wasting their political say so. So, with this happening, you have a whole lot of people who prefer propaganda to philosophy. Propaganda has a negative connotation, meaning trying to be evil or something. Propaganda is simply information intended to persuade. Nothing inherently bad with propaganda. But the two parties, they bounce back and forth with just propaganda and no philosophy. Somebody sent me a comment. I made a video about a criticism about a certain branch of feminism or a certain mindset that some feminists have. And this person, they gave me an example of this. They spoke an example of propaganda. I spoke against feminists, so they spoke against feminists too. Mine was philosophical, there was propaganda. And I'm going to read what they said. They said, feminism as well as socialism both are based on lies and deception of the people who fall for them. Both thrive with the help of useful idiots who think they're doing the right thing. Both these isms originate from the same source and have the same agenda: to destroy the Western societies and their cultural base by undermining the family values, forced lesbianism, as well as religious unity. Atheism is directly, specifically against Christianity, not the other religions, and social structure. This person says this, and I respond back to them saying that that is completely without information. And I said it's just propaganda, information intended to persuade, but not to inform or enlighten, of course. And I say watch, and then I just take what he said. Like, that's something that a conservative Republican would say. I just take it and turn it around. So you have this, you have a, what do they call those? Template. Your belief is da da da. It does this. So you just take the template he gave, change out the words, then nothing really changes. Since there's no information, since you're not naming anything, you're not mentioning any values specifically, you're not talking about anything philosophical, you can just flip propaganda. And it sounds like this. Capitalism and Christianity are based on lies of those who fall into them, thriving on useful idiots who think they're doing the right thing. Both isms, Christianism and capitalism, both originate from the same source and agenda: to destroy Western societies and culture by undermining family values, forced family division in capitalism, social structures, especially religious homogeny, pseudo-Christianity. So I just took what he said, flipped it. People can do that if you rely on propaganda and you don't have a philosophical mind. Now here's where it gets really bad. Kids these days, they're getting stupider and stupider. And people are trying to figure out how to fix them. But they're not really trying to figure out how to fix them. They're trying to apply propaganda and patch and just put a band-aid on something that needs a lot more than a band-aid: the stupidity of their children. What they continue to do is try to rely on propaganda instead of philosophy. The difference there, if you're dealing with a person, kid for example, philosophy, well, propaganda teaches you what to think. Philosophy teaches you how to think. And so as kids get stupider and stupider, more worse at critical thinking and more amenable to suggestion, more likely to believe the stupidest things. You're like, hey, you're believing the stupidest thing. You're useful. Come over here. And so I wasn't completely being facetious when I flipped that guy's thing, because both of those extremes rely on useful idiots: Christianity and capitalism, socialism and feminism. Neither of those is inherently bad or inherently going to do away with people who are not philosophical. If you're not philosophical, neither of those systems can work, if we took those as the two systems you could choose from. And if you are philosophical, either of those systems can work. But people are preferring, and specific to the problem of children becoming stupider and stupider, more amenable to ridiculous suggestion. They're just saying, wow, these are very manageable, but the wrong people are managing them, instead of, again, teaching them how to think. And so simply, you have a choice when you deal with people, dealing with them philosophically or dealing with them through propaganda. Again, if you don't like the side they're on and you deal with them in propaganda, then you're going to be saying those just insults and saying you're against freedom. You're against happiness, like the psychopaths that set our foreign policy and the psychopaths who uh, enforce it and the psychopaths who call the enforcers heroes. It's all just propaganda, information intended to persuade, but there's no philosophy behind it. That's why the moral bankruptcy just keeps getting worse and worse. And neither side, of course, both sides say, "Oh, that side's more bankrupt." They're both terrible, and all the shades in between are pretty much terrible. There is no philosophy in politics. It's all about propaganda, trying to persuade people to believe your philosophy. But at some point, the philosophy got really mixed out of the equation. So people in general, kids specifically, but people in general are getting stupider and stupider in this society. And then people just they talk about throwing money at a problem. No, you're just throwing propaganda at a problem, trying to maybe be smarter, be more critically thinking. Because a hot chick with a sign that says it and she's got big tits, she says critical thinking is hot. That's kind of the mentality that's the various forms come like that. Like, we're going to convince you to be critical thinkers by giving you a cookie if you do it. It can't work that way. No matter how hard you try, if you're using the wrong tools, you're not going to solve stupidity and a lack of critical thinking through propaganda. It has to come with philosophy, with actual principles that are demonstrable and fair. It reminds me of an old, what are those called? Fable. The wind and the sun see a traveler, and the wind and the sun say, "I wonder which of us could get that coat off the traveler." The sun says to the wind, and the wind's like, "Oh man, I could do it. I'm the man. I'm the wind." And the sun says, "I bet I can do it." And so the wind goes first, and he's blowing cold air at this traveler, trying to get the traveler to, knock its coat off. No matter how hard the wind blows, the traveler's pulling it tighter and tighter. And then he's like, "Oh, I couldn't do it. And let me have a try at this," says the sun. And he comes out and he gently shines, and the person gets hot, takes off the coat. Foolishly, that fable is often mentioned as, see, sometimes it takes just a gentle touch to help people, no matter how. No, it's not about gentle or anything. It's the right tool for the job. Had they tried to put the coat on, then a harsh touch would have worked from the wind. So as this applies to the philosophy with children and people in general being continually stupefied, is if you're using the wrong tool for the job, they're just going to pull that coat tighter. And the coat is the stupidity, the willingness to be led into any direction. And this is a problem.